Welcome to MacroView Television, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Taiwan Outlook, the program that lets you see the different faces and hear the different voices of Taiwan. I'm your host, Wu Ruiguo. For those of you who would like to travel, I would suppose that the Middle East is one region that you will try to avoid because of the past history of war and also the political stability in the region. A lot of people would not choose the Middle East as their preferred travel destination. However, have you asked yourself before that how much do you really know about the region? For that fact, how much do you really know about the Islamic religion and the development in the Islamic world? And on today's program, we're truly delighted to have an expert on this issue related to the Middle East. He is Dr. Lin Chang-Kuan, who is currently the Executive Director at the Center for Middle Eastern and Islamic Studies at the National Zhenjiang University, to talk about the relationship between the Middle East and Taiwan, and also Islamic development in the island itself. Thank you very much for being on the program, Professor Lin.
Thank you, Dr. Wu, and thank you for your invitation to this program.
Yes. As I said at the very beginning, Professor Lin, not many of us in Taiwan will want to go to Middle East when we pick a holiday, travel destination. And I would suppose, other than, limited businesses that actually has, ties with the Middle East countries, that a lot of the business people will not travel to the region as well because of the lack of understanding about culture, different religions, and also the political instability that we often see in the news. So a lot of people will try to avoid the Middle East. And given the fact that there isn't, very extensive exchanges between the Middle East and Taiwan, why is it at this time, a few months back, that you have decided, along with your colleagues at the National Zhenjiang University, to set up the Center for the Middle Eastern and Islamic Studies?
Yes. To set up this institute, there must be urgent needs.
Yes.
So actually in Taiwan, the most common people are not familiar with the Middle East.
Yes.
And their religion and culture. That's why we all get information from the West media,
yes,
or from some indirectly experienced reports. So according to my experience or research, and of course some of my colleagues, we feel that we need to make public to the Taiwan people about the Middle East.
Yes.
Yeah, and also study Middle East is kind of important the area, especially in the West or even in the East. For example, in Japan, Korea, or even in mainland China. So in Taiwan, unfortunately, we don't have this kind of department or teaching in university. That's why we think we ought to set up this kind of institute to promote this kind of research and teaching.
Okay. What are some of the primary objectives that you would like to achieve at the center? How do you expect yourselves, along with your colleagues, to achieve those objectives?
Yes, the main purpose of this, or goal of this institute, we have 3 stages.
Okay.
The first stage, we'll try to bring the intention, bring people's intention to the areas that are Middle East and Islam itself.
Okay.
So we have to organize a few or some activities about this kind of study. And then we will try to set up a postgraduate program for the people who wanted to know or to learn more about the Middle East. And then we can educate people for the further advanced studies in the West or even in Arab countries.
All right.
And for the long term, we're going to have some kind of international exchange program to cooperate with the international important or key issue institute of international known university or institutes in Middle Eastern studies.
Okay. And given the 3 major goals that you have identified just for us, for the center, I think this is very important as our country, Taiwan, is trying to become more internationalized.
Yeah.
And compared with other neighboring countries, like Japan, like Korea, and like ASEAN countries, are we a little behind in terms of our understanding and relationship with the Middle East? I mean, like you said, maybe including myself, we have very limited understanding about the Middle Eastern countries. I mean, compared with others like Japan and Korea, are we kind of behind in terms of how much we should know about these very important countries?
Yes, I think you're right. We are very behind of those countries, especially in the West.
Yes.
For example, the Middle Eastern studies and the Islamic studies in the West, in Europe, started 300-400 years ago.
Okay.
And for example, in Japan, we are behind them 50 years.
Really?
Yes.
Right.
So nowadays, in Japan, they produce a lot of international scholars of Middle Eastern Islamic studies, but in Taiwan, we don't have.
You don't? Yes.
So myself, when 20 years ago, I graduated from Chengchi University, Department of Arabic. But so far, already 20 years passed, but we don't have expert.
We don't have an institute that concentrates on this. Yes.
Still remaining in the basic teaching of undergraduate program.
Okay. Yeah. But as you know, because of forces of globalization, we need to understand the Middle East. Not only because we depend on the Middle East for oil supply, but for many other reasons as well. What would you think would be the kinds of perspectives from the standing of your institute or center for the time being, that you would like to help Taiwan to develop the kinds of perspectives regarding the Middle East and regarding the Islamic world?
Yes, first we would like to suggest more courses teaching of Middle East in the university. Okay. That's why we have to raise a lot of some expert, professional.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. And given the fact that like you said, we're behind compared with other neighboring countries, what are the things that we can do to try to make up for lost time? Do you have any concrete proposals or suggestions in mind?
Yes, apart from the work within the university and outside university, we try to persuade the government to invest resources on these area studies, because in the past, according to some my colleagues' opinions, although the government officers, they don't know much about the Middle East.
Precisely.
And they do need some experts for their consultancy.
Okay.
That's why we try to persuade our government to pay more attention on this subject.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we know that, like I just mentioned, that we depend on the Middle East for the majority of our supply of oil. Yeah. And we also have, a lot of cultural ties with some of the Middle Eastern countries. Right. But the fact of the matter remains is, there are many areas that we should also devote some resources in terms of getting a better perspective. For example, energy, in terms of cultural exchanges, in terms of religious understanding. These are the areas also of priority interest among the academic community. Are there more scholars, your colleagues at Chengchi University, will also like to get deeper involved in those areas?
Yes. Middle Eastern culture is quite important because it's located between the West and the East.
Yes.
So it's a place of encounter between the East and the Western culture. So if you want to know about West, we have to know by Middle East. For example, in the medieval period, this Islamic culture passed to the West and caused the Renaissance in Europe. Yes. In Europe. That's why, and also in the Islamic world, there's a close link with the East, for example, India and even China.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's quite a cultural communication it happened in the past.
Yeah. We also understand that, the fact that, Middle East is some, a region in the world that we really have very little understanding of in Taiwan. And what are some of the misunderstanding or misconceptions that you have discovered that people in Taiwan in general have towards the Middle East and towards the Islamic religion and Islamic people?
Yes, unfortunately, most people know about Islam or the Middle East through the Western media because they were reported as violent people or terrorists.
Yes.
But actually, we have to look at the real reason behind the terrorism.
Of course.
Yeah. That's why we have to bring the truth to the public.
Okay. And conversely, what is the image of Taiwan in the Islamic world, as far as you can see?
Well, that's interesting. In the last year, we had a Taiwan Arab Forum, and there's a keynote speech from University of London. Professor Ouyang Wenjin, actually she's Taiwanese.
Yes.
And she talked about the image of Taiwan in the Arab media. And it brings a lot of interesting things that's almost a negative.
Really?
Yes.
Primarily negative?
Yeah, because the Arab media do not know about the culture or civilization of Taiwan or history of Taiwan.
Okay.
That's why they just report on superficially, not in depth.
Okay, yeah. But what are the negative things they report about Taiwan? That Taiwan is unfriendly to foreigners or anti-Islamic?
Well, it's not really, because the eating habit tradition is different. Because Muslims, they don't eat pork or not halal food. So when they look at Taiwan people eating habit, they think they are
dirty.
Very strange.
Unhealthy things, unholy to them. Okay.
For example, also the idol worship.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes, I want to thank Professor Lin Chang-Kuan for giving us that overall comprehensive overview about the relationship between Taiwan and the Middle Eastern countries, especially the kinds of understanding or misunderstanding that we have between the two sides. We're going to take a short break on our program, and when we come back, we're going to continue this very interesting conversation with Professor Lin Chang-Kuan, who is currently the Executive Director of the Center for Middle Eastern and Islamic Studies at the National Zhenji University. I'll see you in just a few minutes. Welcome back to the second segment of today's program here on the Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Rui Guo. We will continue our conversation with Professor Lin Chang-Kuan, who is currently the Executive Director at the Center for Middle Eastern and Islamic Studies at the National Zhenji University. Professor Lin, as we know, that there are many misunderstandings or misconceptions about the Middle East. Then can you use our program to tell our audience that what are some of the core contents of the Islamic and Middle Eastern civilization? What are some of the things that we need to correct? So given the fact that there are some misunderstanding, then can you share with us what are some of the core contents of Islamic civilization?
Yes. So Islamic civilization actually is built on the basic doctrine of Islam.
Yes.
Means unity of God, believing in one God.
Okay.
And under this kind of premise, everyone is equal under the God, one God.
All right.
So actually, if we go to the Middle East or Muslim countries, we found people are quite friendly to whoever he is from, for whichever nationality or races. So it's written in the Quran, the holy book of the Islam said, everyone is created by God should be equal.
Okay.
And so Islamic civilization, if we look at the history in the medieval period, it was a glorious period for the Islamic civilization.
Of course.
At that time, the West is still in the Dark Age. And East, we have a Chinese civilization, but quite a different kind of
very different
type. Yeah. So the science, the technology actually developed from the medieval Islamic civilization. I mean, today's Western.
Yes.
So when we look at the history, we should understand that Islam was very advanced in the civilization building. So nowadays, because they are behind. Why? Because some political reason or some backwards of industrialization.
Okay.
Or because of some colonization. So we have to look at this kind of elements which made those Islamic word big words.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So these are the things that you think by understanding the core values of the Islamic civilization can help widen the communication between Taiwan and the Middle Eastern countries.
Yeah.
Okay. And what are some of the courses? As you mentioned, the second goal in your center in the future is to recruit a graduate student. What are some of the courses that you would like to offer to incoming students at your center?
Yeah. We have, in our institute, we divide into two groups,
Okay.
Middle Eastern Area Studies and Islamic Studies.
Okay,
But we
all right.
have a kind of enjoying program
right.
for the two groups.
Okay.
For the Middle East, of course, we have to teach international relations, the
Yes.
theory or the
Practice.
practice and
Yes.
affairs,
Yeah.
and also on economic, politics, or whatever related to it.
Okay.
But for the Islamic studies,
Okay.
this group, we have to teach the religion
Okay.
and the culture.
Okay.
And also, as you just said, the civilization, the content of civilization is quite important.
Of course.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, that Islamic civilization was one of the oldest in the world and certainly one of the richest, back in the days when the West was still in the Dark Ages. And the fact of the matter remains is that since it once occupied such an important role in the development of human history, what's the impact that you can, as an expert on the subject matter, what's the impact that you can see through understanding, through teaching, that we can know that Islamic civilization can play in the world in the future?
Yes. Well, because we are now Westerner,
Yes.
and we have a different stance
Of course.
from the West.
Yes.
So we study Islamic civilization,
Okay.
we study Middle East. Then we have to think how can join this kind of international
Okay.
business or affairs.
Okay.
That's why we can more neutral in the international affairs
All right.
than West or than some special country. I don't
Okay.
mention that.
Of course.
The name. Yeah.
Okay. And what are some of the symbols that are representative of Islamic culture that you can tell us? Some of the symbols that we may be able to see, for example, on the streets somewhere in Taiwan.
Yes. Well, in Taiwan, it's easy to distinguish Muslim or non-Muslim only in the mosque.
In the mosque.
Mosque is a place of worship,
Okay.
God.
All right.
And in the Islamic world, mosques are everywhere. And it's the most easier, obvious object to see.
Okay.
And also, mosque is the center of social activities.
Right.
So every Friday, Muslims gather in the mosque to worship together and to have activities apart from the worshiping ritual. Yeah.
Okay. And also, we talk about Islamic civilization being one of the oldest and most important civilizations. What does the word Islam mean originally?
Okay. Islam, this verb noun,
Okay.
means submission.
All right.
Submission to what? Submission to one God.
One God.
So you
Unity
have to,
of God.
Yes, you have to be obedient to one God, but not to human being.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And given the fact that is there, any difference between the word Islam and Muslim?
Well, Islam is a name of the religion or a name of the way of life.
Okay.
And Muslim means that the one who practice Islam.
Okay.
Yes.
So-
Actually, Islam is not totally equal to Muslim because
Okay.
nowadays a lot of Muslims became more secularized.
Okay.
And they are not practicing Islam at all.
Okay. And let me ask Professor Lin, how many Muslims that we have in Taiwan currently? Do you have the figure?
Well, it's difficult to calculate because according to the statistic figure,
Okay.
in 1949, when the KMT government moved to Taiwan, at
Yes.
that time, they brought a lot of Muslim, more than 70,000 Muslim households.
Okay.
But now, if you go to check the statistic figure, recorded in the Ministry of Interior Affairs,
Yes.
yeah, it's only 2,000, something like that. So
Okay.
it means reducing. Why?
Why?
because a lot of Muslims became converted to other religion or became atheist.
Okay.
That's environment.
Okay. And how many Islamic mosques that we have in Taiwan? Well, you know, the one that we most see often in Taipei is the one on, you know, Xinsheng Nanlu.
Yes.
Yeah, but how many, you know, are there altogether?
Yes, we have in Taiwan 6 mosques.
6 mosques.
Yeah, in Taipei, we have a Grand Mosque.
Okay.
Grand Taipei Mosque in Xinsheng Nanlu.
Okay.
And the other one called Cultural Mosque.
Okay.
In Xinghai Road, opposite the Catholic Genshin Catholic.
So these two are fairly close by.
Yes.
Okay.
And now we have another smaller one in Longgang, Zhongli.
Okay.
That's where the community mosque
Okay.
is run by Yunnanese mosque. And then we have in Taichung, in Kaohsiung and Tainan.
Okay.
Yes.
But even out of the number that you gave earlier, 20,000, we only have, you know, 6 mosques in Taiwan. That's still too little.
Yes.
And I suppose, and as an expert on Islamic studies, that you must have a lot of friends who are Muslim. Do they express to you saying that, hey, you know, Professor Lin, as an expert on this subject matter, can you tell, you know, your government that there's simply too few mosques for us to, you know, congregate, to worship, to pray? Is that, you know, something that you often hear from you know, Muslim friends?
Yes, actually, I hear this mostly from the foreign Muslims, not the local Muslims.
Not the local Muslims.
Yes,
Okay.
because nowadays we have a lot of the foreign workers, for example, from Indonesia,
Yes.
or from other Muslim countries, especially from Africa, and they are scattered around in Taiwan. So we should have more mosques for them.
Okay.
But why not local Muslims ask this question? Because they are not even near to the mosque.
No.
So not easy for them to
It's
go
inconvenient,
to the...
yes.
Yes. Yeah, it's inconvenient for them to come to the mosque every Friday, especially during the work time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And given the fact that, you know, our population of Muslims is actually declining in Taiwan, and there's probably, you know, for the foreseeable future, we're not likely to see more Muslim, you know, mosques, Islamic mosques in Taiwan. Do you think that, you know, the trend could be changed somehow, maybe through better understanding, or maybe through some government efforts, you know, to try to make, you know, Taiwan's, you know, democratic environment even more receptive to, you know, other religions?
Yes, I think we need an Islamic revival.
Okay.
Within the Muslim community.
All right.
Because most of the young generation, they do not know about Islam.
Yes.
So the association, the Chinese Muslim Association in Taipei should take up this responsibility to re-educate them. For example, to have an Islamic school, like Sunday school at least.
Okay.
But nowadays we don't have.
We don't have it in Taiwan. Okay.
No.
Well, this is a surprise.
Yeah.
Because even, you know, for overseas Taiwanese communities, you know, they have Sunday schools for, you know, Taiwanese and Chinese learning for the second or third generation, but we don't have it here.
No, that's why I have been advocating 10 years ago, but because of some complications, so it's not materialized.
It hasn't happened.
No,
okay.
Not yet.
Do you think there is, you know, possibly some corporate interest, you know, in terms of sponsoring, you know, Islamic revival in Taiwan?
Yes. Nowadays, there are some foreign Muslims have been settled down in Taiwan.
Yes.
They are thinking of set up an Islamic school for their children and for the local Muslims.
Okay, so that is something in the works.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we're going to take another short break on our program. When we come back, we will continue this conversation with Professor Lin Chang-Kuan from the National Zhengzhi University. I'll see you in just a few minutes. Welcome back to today's program here on the Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Ray Guo. We will continue this conversation with Professor Lin Chang-Kuan, who is currently the Executive Director at the Center for Middle Eastern and Islamic Studies at the National Zhengzhi University. Professor Lin, we understand that there's a lot of misunderstanding and perception about Muslim, about Islamic religion. And undoubtedly, one of the catalyst events was the 9/11 attack back in the year 2001. And that was a tragedy, not only for the victims themselves, but also for the humanity at large. And can you then share with us, how has the worldwide image of Islam changed after what happened on September 11th, 2001?
Yes, it's a shame that it happened.
Yes.
In the 9/11 event.
Yes.
And since then, Muslim image of the Western people have been dramatically changed as very, very negative.
Yes.
So most people think Muslims are militant, they are violent,
All right.
they are not unreasonable. So nowadays, Muslim countries, they have tried to change this kind of image of West. So they make a lot of activity or effort to change this kind of conception.
Okay.
What kind of activities then?
Okay.
Through religious dialogue and cultural dialogue.
Okay. And I think you mentioned a key point earlier, is that we should not look at what's happening in the Middle East or in the Islamic world purely through the eyes of the Western media. We should look at the reasons for some of the perceptions that we have regarding people from the Middle East or Middle Eastern countries. And given the fact that a lot of times the perception is almost everything, how can we, after 9/11, try to change that perception through media, through reporting, through teaching, through education, through many different methods. Even for those of us in Taiwan, that we can slowly but gradually, changing the misconception that we have about the Islamic world.
Yeah. For in Taiwan, we have done some activities with some Muslim foundations. For example, there's called Anatolia Formosa Association.
Okay.
It was founded by Turkish Muslims.
All right.
And they also have an Indonesian school in Kaohsiung.
Okay.
So they have some events to invite the local people to share with them about their culture, their heritage.
Okay.
So by this way, people come in to know more about Islam, more Muslim life gradually.
All right.
And also we try to organize more forum or conference to invite scholars to discuss this kind of conference or kind of misconception. Yeah.
Okay. So if we look at it in a more positive way, maybe what happened, the tragedy on September 11th, could have been a stimulus for many people around the world to try to get to know Islamic religion, Islamic community around the world a little better, because what you said, the negative impression that many people have, it should not be perceived only through the eyes of the Western media. Is that something you think is happening, that more people use that occasion as a reason, as a motivation to really get to know the Islamic world much better?
Yes, you're right. For example, in the West, a lot of Muslim migration,
yes,
immigrant to the United States or to Europe,
yes,
they try to organize more activity to declare that they are peaceful people,
yes,
and they try to communicate, they try to make the genuine meaning of Islam to the public in the West.
Yes.
Also in Taiwan, we are doing the same thing.
All right.
So Muslim has this kind of self-awareness that they should go out and to talk to people.
Exactly.
About the culture,
yeah,
the religion.
Yeah, and also another point that you mentioned earlier is the fact that we have many domestic workers here in Taiwan that are originally from, for example, Indonesia or other Muslim countries around the world. And then unfortunately, of course, we learn from newspaper reports that because of misunderstanding about the Islamic religion, that we had a number of incidents where the employers and the domestic worker from Indonesia had little conflict over the dietary restrictions. But the fact of the matter remains is now we are getting more and more workers from countries like Malaysia, like Indonesia, who are Muslim. Do you think that can also help correct some of the misconception or misunderstanding that people in Taiwan have originally towards the Muslim people?
Yes. Most people in Taiwan, especially the employer,
Okay.
they do not know much about their employees' culture. For example, they force the employee to eat pork.
Yes.
And this is a shame. And also, I have to mention that this kind of Chinese chauvinism, cultural chauvinism in their mind.
Okay.
But in the past, we look at the Southeast Asian people as barbarian.
Okay. Yes.
But no more than that.
No more.
Shouldn't be.
Yes.
Right. So we have to know about their culture. Because we have millions of people invest in the Southeast Asia country,
Okay.
then they should know the local culture, the local Muslim life.
Okay.
They should respect them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other than the dietary restriction, not eating pork and things, for example, what are the other more, simple and popular notions that we should have regarding the Islamic, community? For example, is Ramadan the most important holiday, for people of Islamic, faith?
Yes, I think the employer should know that Muslim workers in Taiwan, they have a right to observe their religious duty.
Of
For
course.
example, fasting in Ramadan,
Yes.
or 5 days prayer a day.
Yes.
So they should allow them to do that, although they may affect their working efficiency.
Of course.
But in the stance of human rights, you have to allow them to do the practice.
Yes, and you and I were talking before the taping started that there are not many universities in Taiwan, public or private, that have really paid a lot of attention and resources into the study of the Middle East and also Islamic religion. Do you think that trend is going to change because now the center is being set up at the National Zhenji University? Maybe other universities will follow suit.
Yes, I do hope university will follow. For example, Taiwan University,
Yes.
they are thinking of setting up a Department of Arabic or Middle Eastern Studies, but they couldn't find experts. That's why we don't have experts in Taiwan.
Okay.
We have to take an initiation
Okay.
of this kind of teaching and research.
Okay.
Yeah, to provide experts for the other universities.
Okay. But let me ask you though, that Professor Lin, of course, cross-strait relations is, in a different stage of development as compared to, a few years back. And we have a lot of academic exchanges between the two sides. And is the exchanges with Chinese scholars who specialize in the Middle East and in the Islamic, studies also, picking up, intensifying, between the two sides?
Yes, actually in mainland China, there are some experts on the Middle Eastern studies or Islamic studies.
Yes.
But again, there are two types of scholars. One is non-Muslim, one is Muslim. So their research attitude are quite different.
Very different.
And then we have to think about what kind of scholar we have to cooperate with them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And currently, does your center have any established relationship with institutions on the mainland?
Well, in the future, we hope to,
Okay.
to set up this kind of relations.
Okay. And I do suppose that international academic exchanges will also be a very important part of your center or institute in the future.
Yeah.
So are you looking at to establish some type of exchange programs, like you mentioned, with also universities in the Middle East?
Yeah.
Is that also on the agenda?
Oh, yes, sure.
Okay.
For example, we have signed an MOU with Arab Thought Forum
Okay.
in Jordan.
Okay.
And it's kind of, we can have exchange program for teachers and for students,
Okay.
researchers also.
Okay. And do you have regularly, for example, every year, holding an international conference, maybe here in Taiwan 1 year and the other year in the Middle East? Is that something also in the planning?
Yes, that's why it's kind of set to the agenda.
Okay.
1 year in Taiwan, 1 year in the other country.
Of
Yes.
course.
Yeah.
And then how about around the neighboring countries? Are we doing anything, for example, with Indonesia universities, since Indonesia is the largest Muslim country in the world?
Yes, Indonesia actually is one of the very important country in Islamic world.
Of course.
And next year we're going to have a cooperation of international conference with Aceh. Aceh International Islamic University.
Okay,
yes.
Good. I'm glad to see that Taiwan is really picking up, for lost time, and then maybe in the years past we haven't really paid attention to this area, but hopefully in the future, under your leadership and also the assistance of your colleagues, that we can really become part of this community that concentrate on the Middle Eastern and also Islamic studies. Okay, we're going to take a final break on our program today, and when we come back, we will try to wrap up this very interesting and informative conversation with Professor Lin Chang-Kuan from the National Zhengzhi University. I'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back to the final part of today's program here on the Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Ray Guo. We will continue this very interesting conversation with Professor Lin Chang-Kuan, who is currently the Executive Director for the Center of Middle Eastern and Islamic Studies at the National Zhengzhi University here in Taipei. Professor Lin, we understand that for most people, maybe think of the relationship between Taiwan and Middle East is through the oil imports. But actually, there's more, going on, multiple dimensions between Taiwan and Middle Eastern countries. Can you then give us a general overview of the kinds of relationship that we have with many of the Middle Eastern and also Islamic countries around the world?
Yes. Nowadays, we have some close link with the Middle Eastern countries, especially in trade and oil energy.
Yes.
But in the future, we should develop that kind of a culture exchange program. For example, the traditional art center in Iran is planning a music festival. They're going to invite a group from West Asia and Central Asia, means in Muslim world.
Very good.
Islamic country.
Yes.
And I'm going to join them organizing some activities, especially for some religious group and art performing, music performing, a group to come to Taiwan for kind of promotion.
Okay, so besides what we already have in terms of trade and the energy, you want to expand into the area of cultural, and maybe in the future education.
Yeah.
And your center, and once upgraded into an institute, also would like to recruit, some of the the students from the Islamic world. You and I were talking during the break. There are some Indonesian students who are very qualified, capable, and you certainly would like to see them coming over to your center, to your institute in the future. Is that something other universities in Taiwan will also follow after National Zhengzhi University?
Yes. I think we have to adopt American policy to intake more Middle Eastern students.
Okay.
Our government provides some studentship for Arab students or Middle Eastern students to study in Taiwan.
Okay.
And they are not studying Islam because they need other expert training.
Okay.
For example, engineering or technology or so what.
Okay.
So in the future, we're going to take more students into this kind of area of studies, Middle Eastern and Islamic studies.
Okay, good. And as we have discussed, that last year in 2010, we signed a very important economic agreement with China, the ECFA, Economic Cooperation Framework Agreement. And this is, one of the agreements that's going to open up Taiwan and make us more regionally integrated. And certainly President Ma Ying-jeou has made it very clear that in the future we would like to see ECFA signed with China, but also maybe possible FTAs with many of the ASEAN countries. And when we look at ASEAN countries, quite a few number of them have substantial Muslim population. For example, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand. And then given the fact that we are going to be concentrating, try to strengthen our relations with ASEAN countries, will your center, your institute in the future, try to play a role as a bridge, between governments or between academic institutions or between societies, try to make the two sides closer through better understanding, through improved communication? Is that something that you have envisioned for your center in the future?
Yes. Let me mention one thing. A few years ago, when I was in Indonesia,
yes,
and some Indonesian officers told us, if you want to do business with us, then you don't know our culture. How can we go some kind of big scale business? So our institute will promote this kind of cultural mutual understanding, and provide our government some references.
All right.
And also provide the entrepreneurs or business people. And also we hope to train some government officers on this kind of profession or experts.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also, is there something that maybe those of us in media can do in terms of trying to educate Taiwanese public? For example, we mentioned earlier that there are many domestic workers and also some of the migrant workers who are working on Taiwan's infrastructure. And you also mentioned earlier that many of the employers in Taiwan do not know and do not know how to respect the Islamic religion and the different ways of life. And is there something that we can do to also trying to help our people, the Taiwan public, to get a better understanding of getting along with immigrant workers from Indonesia, from Malaysia, and other Islamic countries around the world?
Yes, what we can do is have some cooperation with the government department. For example, the Labor
Affairs Council.
And also from Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Yes.
We can have this kind of workshop and to bring the public and the foreigner together, discuss and to understand each other. Yeah.
Okay. But another misconception that we have, or maybe something that you can correct me on, is that in the Islamic religion, and there seems to be a difference between the treatment for men and the treatment for women. Is that true?
Well, it's nothing to do with Islam. It's something to do with the local custom.
Okay, so that changes from Islamic, country to country.
Yes.
Okay. And which countries would somehow have a different treatment for men and different treatment for women?
Well, according to Islam, men and women are equal. But according to the local tradition, it's not true. Okay. For example, in Afghanistan, I mean the new regime, the Taliban, is very fundamentalist oriented. So they treat women as good.
Okay.
As article, as not a human being, and some other countries also. But some other country in the West Asia, for example, Lebanon, Egypt, or even Jordan, or Jerusalem, Palestine, in North Africa, they are quite open. So if you go there, you find not everyone or women wear scarf.
No,
it's not safe because it's not regulated in the Quran.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So it depends on the local tradition.
Okay. And as an expert in the area, do you think that maybe with the passage of time, the Islamic religion will also, make some, in terms of, the local customs, also making some changes that are more in tune with what the world community at large will expect? For example, some of the customs that you mentioned about women wearing scarves, maybe women getting different treatment from the men. Will those be gradually re-examined and possibly replaced in the future?
Yes, that's why there's a trend of Islamic revival or renewal. Or reform. That's why they have to go back and re-examine to look at the tradition. How can they accommodate into the new society or new era? So they have to look at the West and compare with their situation and then make decision.
And also, Professor Lin, as you know, one of the emerging industries in Taiwan is tourism. And I don't know the figures offhand, but I would suppose there are not many tourists traveling back and forth, between the Middle East and Taiwan. Maybe a lot of people will go to places like Dubai occasionally, but it's not, some of the, preferred travel destinations for many people. Would you think that, maybe with a better understanding between the two sides, that tourism can really become another channel, for improved understanding between Taiwan and the Middle East and other Islamic countries?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So when the Taiwanese tourists go to Middle Eastern countries or Muslim world, they will bring Taiwan's concept to the Arabs or to Muslims.
Yes.
Also, we should take more Arab or Muslim tourists into Taiwan, and to let them know about Taiwan culture. That will reach kind of harmony of understanding.
Yes. For example, if myself included, that we ever want to see the pyramid, in the future, I think you have to travel to the Middle East, of course, in Egypt, and then this is something I think will offer a lot of attraction to many people in Taiwan. But I think before a lot of people, make that decision to travel there, they need to have a better and more comprehensive understanding of the area, and not only just the scars that are left behind from past conflicts, between the different countries in the region, but also how the region has evolved over the years, how is it becoming more receptive and more open to the external visitors and external cultures. Do you see that trend to continue in many of the Middle Eastern countries in the future?
Yes, because the Middle Eastern countries, their economic situation is getting better and better.
Of course.
So, but unfortunately, a lot of rich people, they go to West for tourism, holiday, not to the East. So Taiwan has to make attraction to them first.
We'll have to make a promotional effort.
Yes. And actually, our institute and Taiwan Association of Islamic Studies and the National Taiwan Museum is going to have an exhibition of Islamic culture at the end of this year.
Good.
Yeah, and this will promote the local understanding of Islam and to bring more foreign Muslims to Taiwan. To join this kind of event.
Okay, so certainly your center will play a very important role as Taiwan tries to improve its understanding and communication with the Middle Eastern and also Islamic countries around the world. Thank you very much, Professor Lin, for being on the program today.
You're welcome.
Yes. Thank you for watching our program today. I'll see you next time on Microview Television. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.